The transport ship moved slowly toward the metal station floating in space. 6 alien students pressed their faces against the viewing windows, staring at the blue and green planet below them. Earth looked beautiful from this distance, but they all knew the truth. This was the most dangerous world in the known galaxy. Zeph's crystal body sparkled as he moved closer to the window. His people, the Altarians, were made of living crystal and came from a world where the biggest danger was a gentle breeze. "I still cannot believe we agreed to study here," he said, his voice making tiny bell sounds. Next to him, Mira floated, in her breathing suit filled with the gas her people needed to live. The Nexarians lived on a world covered in soft clouds where nothing bad ever happened. "My parents said I was crazy to come here," she whispered through her suit's speaker. Kor stood perfectly still like always. He was part of the collective, a group mind that shared all thoughts. His people lived on a world where everyone agreed on everything, and there was never any conflict. "The collective warns that this place changes minds," he said in his flat voice. Yala moved in her water tank, on wheels. The Thalassians lived in calm, shallow seas, where the most exciting thing was a slow-moving fish. "The stories I heard about Earth's oceans," she said, bubbles rising in her tank, "they cannot be true." Bix swayed slightly, his green plant-like body catching the station's artificial light. His people ate sunlight and lived on a world where it was always the perfect temperature. "My leaves already feel strange here," he said softly. Next was the strangest of all, a being of frozen gas from a world so cold that most substances turned solid. "Even the cold here is wrong," he said, his voice crackling like ice breaking. The transport ship connected to the station with a soft bump. A door opened, and a human walked in. The 6 students moved back in fear, except for Kor, who never moved fast. The human was tall and had dark hair and brown skin. He smiled widely, showing his teeth. All the students knew that showing teeth was a threat display in most species, but humans did it when they were happy. This confused everyone. "Hello there," the human said loudly. "I'm Jake Martinez, your guide and teacher here at Pioneer's Rest Station. Welcome to Earth orbit." Jake walked over to them with quick steps. The students noticed he moved like a predator, smooth and confident. His body looked soft compared to their various forms, but they all knew humans were incredibly dangerous. "Sorry, I'm a bit late," Jake continued, still smiling. "I had to finish my morning run around the station. Almost got cornered by a maintenance robot, but managed to outrun it. Reminded me of the time I had to outrun a bear during my jog in Colorado." The 6 students froze. Zeph's crystal body made a cracking sound. Mira's breathing got faster inside her suit. Yala sank deeper into her water tank. You were chased by a bear?" Mira asked, her voice shaking. "Oh, yeah. Happens sometimes when you run in the mountains," Jake said like it was normal. "Big brown bear, probably about 8 feet tall when it stood up. I just backed away slowly and made myself look big. They usually don't want trouble. Bix's..." Leaves turned a pale green. "And you survived?" "Sure did. Actually saw the same bear a few weeks later with her cubs. Beautiful creatures, bears. Very protective mothers." Jake picked up a data pad and started walking. "Come on. Let me show you to your rooms. Then we'll have orientation." The students followed him, staying as far back as possible. They moved through the station's halls, looking at everything with wide eyes and various sensory organs. The station was built for humans, so everything looked dangerous to them. Sharp corners, hard surfaces, and artificial gravity that felt too strong. Jake stopped at a large room with windows showing Earth below. The planet looked even more frightening up close. They could see massive storm systems, lightning flashing in clouds, and what looked like explosions of light on the dark side. "Those are cities," Jake explained, following their gaze. "Pretty. Amazing, right? Millions of humans living together in each one." "So many," Core said quietly. "The collective has never seen so many minds in one place." A door opened, and another human walked in. This one was shorter, with blonde hair, and wore a uniform with many badges. The students moved even further back. "Everyone, meet Lisa Carter, our station director," Jake said. "She'll tell you what you need to know about Earth." Lisa smiled at them, another display of teeth that made them nervous. "Welcome, students. I know Earth has a reputation in the galaxy, and I want to be honest with you about why." She turned on a large screen that showed charts and numbers. "Let's start with the basics. Earth's gravity is about twice what most of your worlds have. The atmosphere is 21% oxygen, which makes it basically a bomb waiting to go off. One spark in the right place and whole areas can burn." Zeph made a sound like breaking glass. "You live in an explosive atmosphere?" "It gets better," Lisa continued. "Our weather systems include storms with winds over 200 miles per hour, lightning that can kill instantly, and temperature swings from -40 to +120 degrees. How do you survive?" Yala asked, bubbles streaming up in her tank. "We adapt," Lisa said simply. "But that's not all. Earth has earthquakes that can level cities, volcanoes that can destroy entire regions, and floods that reshape the land. Oh, and we share the planet with creatures that see us as food." The screen showed pictures of Earth animals, lions with massive teeth, sharks with rows of cutting blades in their mouths, bears bigger than some of the students' spacecraft, snakes with poison that could kill hundreds of beings. Nex's frozen form started to shake. "And humans live among these monsters?" "We don't just live among them," Jake said proudly. "We study them, protect them, and sometimes keep them as pets." "Pets?" all 6 students said at once. Lisa laughed, a sound that made them all jump. "Wait until you meet my dog. He's back on Earth right now, but he loves to play fetch and go swimming." "Swimming?" Yala asked in horror. "In Earth water?" "Sure, dogs love water, so do humans. We swim in oceans with sharks, rivers with crocodiles, and lakes where who knows what lives in the deep parts." The students looked at each other in disbelief. These humans were talking about their deadly world like it was a playground. Jake checked his datapad. "Okay, let's get you settled in your rooms. Tomorrow we'll watch some Earth documentaries to help you understand what you'll be studying." As they left the room, Bix whispered to the others, "I think we made a terrible mistake coming here." Core nodded slowly. "The collective agrees. These humans are either the bravest species in the galaxy or completely insane. Maybe both," Zeph added, his crystal body still making worried sounds. They spent their first night on the station looking out at Earth, watching the storms move across its surface and wondering what they had gotten themselves into. None of them slept well except for Nex, who never slept anyway. In the morning, they would learn that everything they had heard so far was just the beginning. The next morning, the 6 alien students gathered in the station's main room. They had barely slept, too worried about what they would learn next about the death world below them. Jake Martinez walked in carrying a cup of steaming liquid that smelled bitter and strong. Good morning, everyone, Jake said cheerfully. Ready for your first real look at Earth? The students made various sounds of worry. Zeph's crystal body rang like broken bells. Mira's breathing mask fogged up with nervous breaths. Yala sank low in her water tank. I have a special treat for you today, Jake continued, drinking his hot liquid. My friend Ryan Brooks is a field researcher down on Earth. He's offered to take you on a surface expedition. Surface? Bix asked, his green leaves turning pale. You mean, actually go down there? Of course. You can't really understand Earth from up here. Don't worry, we'll start somewhere safe and easy. Another human walked into the room. This one was tall with red hair and carried a large bag on his back. He wore simple clothes and boots that looked like they had walked through mud and dirt many times. Everyone, meet Ryan Brooks, Jake said. Ryan, these are our exchange students. Ryan smiled and waved. Hey there. Excited for your first Earth adventure? The students moved closer together for protection. Ryan looked even more dangerous than Jake. His skin was darker from being in the sun, and he had small scars on his hands and arms. Where exactly are we going? Core asked in his flat voice. Yellowstone National Park, Ryan said like it was the most normal thing in the world. It's one of our most beautiful places. Lots of interesting geology and wildlife to see. Lisa Carter appeared with a cart full of protective suits. These suits were thick and strong, designed to protect the students from Earth's deadly environment. They could survive nuclear blasts and asteroid impacts. Everyone needs to wear these on the surface, Lisa explained. They'll protect you from the atmosphere, gravity, radiation, and pretty much anything else Earth can throw at you. The students struggled into the heavy suits. The suits were so thick they could barely move. Zeph's crystal form barely fit inside his protective shell. Mira needed special connections for her breathing gas. Yala's suit had to be filled with water. Ryan watched them with amusement. He was still wearing his normal clothes and boots. Aren't you going to wear protection? Nex asked, his voice crackling through his suit's speaker. Nah, I'll be fine, Ryan said. It's just Yellowstone. Pretty mild place, actually. They boarded a transport ship that took them down through Earth's atmosphere. The students watched in terror as they passed through the layer of air that could explode at any moment. The ship shook and bounced as it moved through weather systems. Just a little turbulence, Ryan said calmly as the ship rocked back and forth. The pilots are used to this. When they landed, the students got their first real look at Earth's surface. Everything was so bright and colorful compared to their home worlds. The sky was blue with white clouds. Green plants covered the ground. The air itself seemed to move and change. Okay, everyone out, Ryan said, opening the transport door. The students moved very slowly in their heavy suits. Every step was difficult with Earth's strong gravity pulling them down. Ryan walked normally, like the gravity didn't bother him at all. The first thing you'll notice is how alive everything is here, Ryan said as they walked along a path. Earth is packed with life forms, from tiny bacteria to massive trees. A small, furry creature suddenly ran across the path in front of them. The students screamed and jumped back. Zeph fell over in his heavy suit. Mira's breathing got so fast her mask started beeping warnings. What was that monster? Yala cried from inside her water-filled suit. Ryan looked confused. That was just a squirrel. Harmless little guy, probably looking for nuts. It moved so fast, Bix said, his leaves shaking inside his suit. And those teeth. Squirrels are actually pretty cute, Ryan said. They're great climbers and very smart. Some people like to feed them in parks. The students couldn't believe it. Humans thought those fast, sharp-toothed creatures were cute and fed them on purpose. They continued walking through the park. Ryan pointed out different plants and trees, explaining how they grew and lived in Earth's dangerous environment. The students noticed that nothing stood still. Everything moved. Leaves rustled in the wind. Insects flew through the air. Birds sang from the trees. "It's so. Active," Core said. "Nothing on my world moves this much." "Earth is a very dynamic planet," Ryan agreed. "Always changing, always growing, always moving." They came to a large open area where the ground was bare and rocky. Steam rose from the ground in many places. The students could see hot water bubbling up from holes in the earth. "Welcome to the main attraction," Ryan said proudly. "Old Faithful Geyser. It erupts about every 90 minutes, shooting water and steam about 150 feet into the air." "Erupts?" Mira asked nervously. "Yeah. Superheated water explodes out of the ground. It's amazing to watch." The students looked at each other in horror. Ryan was excited about explosions of boiling water. They waited near the geyser with other humans who had come to watch. The students noticed that the humans were relaxed and happy. Children ran around playing. Adults sat on benches eating food. No one seemed worried about the explosive water beneath their feet. Suddenly, the ground started making rumbling sounds. Zeph's crystal body began to vibrate. The sound got louder and louder. "Here it comes!" Ryan said excitedly. The geyser exploded. A massive column of boiling water and steam shot into the air with a sound like thunder. The water was so hot it would have killed most life forms instantly. The force of the explosion was strong enough to destroy buildings. The humans around them clapped and cheered. They thought it was beautiful. The alien students were paralyzed with fear. Zeph's crystal form resonated with the ground vibrations so strongly he thought he might shatter. The others could only stare at the deadly fountain of superheated water. "Isn't that incredible?" Ryan asked as the geyser stopped erupting. "Old Faithful has been doing that for thousands of years." "How do you survive living on a planet that explodes?" Nex asked, his frozen form shaking. "Oh, this is nothing," a new voice said. A human woman in a uniform walked over to them. She had brown hair and friendly eyes. "I'm Amy Johnson, park ranger here. You must be the alien students we heard about." "Ma'am," Ryan said, "I was just showing them Old Faithful." "Great choice," Amy said. "Did you tell them about the supervolcano yet?" "Supervolcano?" all 6 students said at once. Amy nodded cheerfully. "Yellowstone sits on top of one of the largest volcanic systems on Earth. The whole park is basically the top of a massive volcano. If it ever fully erupted, it could destroy most of the continent and change the climate of the entire planet." The students stared at her in disbelief. She was talking about planetary destruction like she was discussing the weather. "But don't worry," Amy continued with a smile. "It probably won't erupt for another few 100,000 years, maybe longer." "Probably," Yala squeaked. "Well, you never know with volcanoes," Amy said. "They can be unpredictable, but that's part of what makes Earth so exciting to live on." Ryan nodded in agreement. Never a dull moment on Earth. As they walked through more of the park, Amy pointed out thermal features everywhere. Hot springs that could cook flesh in seconds, mud pots that bubbled with acidic water, steam vents that shot poisonous gases into the air. "The whole park is essentially a giant pressure cooker," Amy explained happily. "The ground temperature just a few feet down can be hot enough to kill you instantly." "And you built walking paths over it?" Core asked. "Sure. As long as you stay on the paths, you're probably safe," Amy said. "We only lose a few tourists a year to the thermal features." "You lose tourists?" Bix asked in horror. Usually people who ignore the warning signs and try to get closer to the hot springs for better pictures, Amy said. Darwin Award winners, we call them. The final shock came when they rounded a corner and saw a herd of massive dark brown creatures grazing in a field. Each animal was bigger than most of the students' spacecraft. They had huge heads, thick bodies, and horns that could pierce metal. Buffalo! Ryan said excitedly. Also called bison. Aren't they magnificent? The students could only stare at the massive beasts. One of the animals looked up at them with dark eyes and snorted. They look dangerous, Mira whispered. They can be, Amy agreed. Buffalo can run 35 miles per hour and weigh up to 2,000 pounds. Every year, some tourists get too close and get charged. Yet you allow people near them? Nex asked. It's their park, too, Ryan said, taking pictures of the animals. Humans almost drove them extinct in the 1800s. Now we protect them. You hunted these monsters? Zeph asked, his voice cracking. Our ancestors did, with horses and simple weapons, Amy said proudly. Plains Indians were incredible hunters. They could take down a buffalo with nothing but spears and arrows. The students looked at the massive, dangerous animals, then at the soft, seemingly fragile humans. It didn't seem possible that humans could hunt such creatures and win. As they returned to the transport ship, the students were quiet. They had seen their first real taste of Earth life, and it was more terrifying than they had imagined. So, Ryan asked as they prepared to leave, what did you think of your first Earth expedition? Back on the space station, the 6 alien students sat in the medical bay waiting for their checkup after the surface visit. They were still shaking from what they had seen on Earth. Dr. Kevin Walsh, the station's chief medical officer, walked in carrying a data pad and a cup of the same dark liquid that Jake had been drinking. Good morning, everyone, Dr. Walsh said cheerfully. I hope you enjoyed your trip to Yellowstone. Now I need to run some tests to make sure Earth's environment didn't hurt you. Dr. Walsh was older than the other humans they had met, with gray hair and kind eyes behind small glasses. But like all humans, he moved with that strange confidence that scared the students. Before we start the medical exams, I thought you might like to learn about human biology, Dr. Walsh said. It might help you understand how we survive on Earth. He turned on a large screen that showed a picture of a human body. The students moved closer, curious despite their fear. Let's start with how humans are built, Dr. Walsh began. We're what you might call persistence hunters. Our ancestors didn't have claws or big teeth or poison. Instead, they had something much more dangerous. They never gave up. The screen showed early humans running across grasslands, chasing animals much larger than themselves. Humans can run for hours without stopping, Dr. Walsh explained. We have special cooling systems. We sweat through our skin that let us keep going long after other animals collapse from heat. Our ancestors would chase prey animals until they literally died from exhaustion. Zeph's crystal body made a worried ringing sound. You hunted by running creatures to death? That's right. We call it persistence hunting. The animal would run fast and get away, but humans would just keep following, hour after hour, day after day if necessary. Eventually, the prey would be too tired to run anymore. Mira's breathing got faster in her suit. That sounds like torture. It's actually very efficient, Dr. Walsh said calmly, and it taught human bodies to be incredibly good at not giving up. That's why we survive so well on Earth. He changed the screen to show a human skeleton. Human bones are amazing. When they break, they heal back stronger than they were before. The body assumes that if something broke the bone once, it might happen again. So it builds extra strength at that spot. Your bones get stronger when they break? Yala asked from her water tank. Absolutely. I've broken my arm twice, my leg once, and 3 ribs at different times. All of them are stronger now than my bones that have never been broken. The student stared at him in shock. This kind, gentle doctor had been broken multiple times and talked about it like it was normal. But that's not all, Dr. Walsh continued, taking a drink from his cup. Human immune systems are incredibly powerful. We fight off diseases every day that would kill most other species. Our bodies are constantly at war with bacteria, viruses, and parasites. Kor spoke up in his flat voice. Your bodies are always fighting? Always. Right now, as we speak, millions of white blood cells in my body are hunting down and destroying invaders. It's like having a tiny army inside every human. The screen showed microscopic images of white blood cells attacking germs. The students watched these cellular battles with horror and fascination. We also eat things that are poison to most life forms, Dr. Walsh said, holding up his cup. This is coffee. The beans contain chemicals that can kill insects and small animals, but humans love it. We drink it every day. You drink poison for fun? Bix asked, his leaves turning pale green. We eat lots of things that are technically poisonous, Dr. Walsh said with a smile. Hot peppers that burn your mouth. Chocolate that's toxic to most animals. Alcohol that's basically a cleaning chemical. Some humans even eat plants and animals that fight back while being eaten. Nex's frozen form started to shake. Things fight back while you eat them? Ever heard of spicy food? The plants put chemicals in themselves to stop animals from eating them. The chemicals cause pain and burning. Humans taste that and think, this needs more pepper. The door to the medical bay opened, and another human walked in. This one was a woman with dark hair and surgical scrubs that had small stains on them. Kevin, sorry I'm late, the woman said. I just finished a 20-hour surgery and needed some sleep. Everyone, this is Dr. Jenny Martinez, Jake's sister. She's a trauma surgeon visiting from Earth. Jenny, these are our exchange students. Jenny looked at the alien students and smiled. Like all human smiles, it showed teeth, which made the students nervous. Trauma surgeon, Mira asked carefully. I fix people who get badly hurt, Jenny explained. Car crashes, falls from buildings, animal attacks, explosions, that kind of thing. And people survive these things? Yala asked in amazement. You'd be surprised what humans can live through, Jenny said, sitting down. Last week I had a patient who fell off a 15-story building. Broken bones, internal bleeding, head injury. We fixed him up and he went home 3 weeks later. Impossible, Zeph said, his crystal body ringing with disbelief. Not for humans, Jenny said proudly. I've seen people survive things that should have killed them 10 times over. Humans are really hard to kill permanently. Dr. Walsh nodded. Human bodies are designed to survive damage and keep working. We can lose large amounts of blood, break multiple bones, damage internal organs, and still stay conscious and fighting. Fighting? Kor asked. Humans have something called adrenaline, Dr. Walsh explained. When we're in danger, our bodies produce a chemical that makes us stronger, faster, and less sensitive to pain. I've seen humans with broken bones lift cars off of trapped people. Jenny laughed. Remember that story about the woman who lifted a truck to save her child? That actually happens. Human mothers protecting their babies become incredibly strong. How strong? Asked Bix. Strong enough to bend metal with their bare hands, Jenny said. Fear and love can make humans do impossible things. Dr. Walsh brought up a new image on the screen. Let me show you something really amazing about humans. We're one of the few species that can survive in almost any environment on our planet. The screen showed humans living in different places. Snow-covered mountains where the cold would kill most life. Hot deserts where the sun could cook flesh. Deep underwater in the oceans. High in the air where there wasn't enough oxygen to breathe. Humans live everywhere on Earth, Dr. Walsh said. From the frozen poles to the hottest deserts, from sea level to the tops of mountains, we adapt to any environment. But how? Asked Nex, who came from a world where even small temperature changes were deadly. We change our behavior, our tools, our bodies if necessary, Jenny explained. Humans who live in high mountains develop bigger lungs and more red blood cells. Humans in hot climates have different skin and cooling systems. We become whatever we need to be to survive. Dr. Walsh took another drink of his coffee. And here's the strangest part. Humans actually need stress and danger to stay healthy. Our bodies require challenge to function properly. What do you mean? Asked Mira. Exercise, Jenny said. Humans deliberately damage their muscles so they grow back stronger. We put stress on our bones so they don't become weak. We challenge our hearts and lungs so they stay powerful. You hurt yourselves on purpose? Yala asked in horror. Every day, Dr. Walsh said cheerfully. I ran 5 miles this morning before work. That means I deliberately stressed my heart, lungs, muscles, and bones. If I don't do this regularly, my body starts to break down. Jenny nodded. Humans who don't exercise become weak and sick. Our bodies are designed to be pushed to their limits. We need challenge to survive. This is insane, Bix said, his leaves shaking. Your species tortures itself to stay healthy. Not torture, Dr. Walsh corrected. Training. We train our bodies, like we train our minds. Always pushing to be stronger, faster, better. Jenny stood up and stretched. The students watched as she easily bent and twisted her body in ways that would break most other species. Watch this, she said. She grabbed her own arm and pulled until her shoulder made a popping sound. The students screamed. Relax, Jenny laughed, popping her shoulder back into place. I just dislocated my shoulder. Humans can do this and keep functioning. In fact, some humans do this for fun. For fun? Core asked, his voice more emotional than usual. Sports, entertainment, recreation, Dr. Walsh explained. Humans do dangerous things because we enjoy the challenge. We climb mountains because they're there. We dive into deep water because it's dark and mysterious. We race cars because going fast is exciting. Jenny checked her watch. Speaking of which, I need to get back to Earth. I'm running a marathon next weekend. A marathon? Asked Zeph. 26 miles of running without stopping, Jenny said proudly. Just for fun. Thousands of humans do it. You run 26 miles for entertainment? Nex asked. Some humans run much farther, Dr. Walsh said. Ultra marathons can be 50, 100, even 200 miles. Through deserts, over mountains, in extreme heat or cold. Jenny gathered her things. It was nice meeting you all. Kevin, remember what I said about those surgery videos? They might find them educational. After she left, Dr. Walsh turned back to the students. Any questions about human biology? The 6 aliens looked at each other. They had learned that humans were built to never give up, designed to survive damage, powered by poison, and programmed to seek out danger and pain for fun. The next day, the 6 alien students gathered in the station's main classroom. They were starting to understand that each lesson about humans would be more shocking than the last. A new human walked in carrying a large bag of books and data pads. He was older with white hair and wore glasses. "Good morning, students," the man said with a warm smile. "I'm Professor Dan Miller, and I teach human history. Today we're going to learn about how humans became the species they are today." The students settled into their seats and viewing areas. Zeph's crystal body dimmed with worry. Mira's breathing mask fogged up with nervous breaths. Yala sank low in her water tank. "Before we start," Professor Miller said, "I should warn you that human history is intense. We've packed a lot of survival, conflict, and exploration into our relatively short time as a species." He turned on the big screen, which showed a map of Earth with arrows pointing in different directions. "Let's begin with human migration," Professor Miller said. "About 70,000 years ago, humans started leaving Africa and spreading across the entire planet. Keep in mind, they had no maps, no vehicles, no communication with other groups. They just walked into the unknown. They explored without knowing what was there?" Core asked. "Exactly. Humans saw mountains and decided to climb over them to see what was on the other side. They saw oceans and built boats to cross them. They saw frozen wastelands and walked into them anyway." The screen showed early humans crossing ice bridges, sailing across dark oceans, and walking through burning deserts. Some groups of humans got trapped by ice ages that lasted thousands of years, Professor Miller continued. Instead of dying, they learned to hunt massive furry beasts like mammoths and saber-toothed cats. They made clothes from animal skins and lived in shelters made from mammoth bones. "They hunted mammoths?" Bix asked, his leaves shaking. "Those creatures were huge, 12 feet tall and weighing 6 tons, Professor Miller said proudly. Humans killed them with wooden spears and stone knives. Then they ate the meat, wore the fur, and used the bones to build houses." Nex's frozen form crackled with disbelief. "How did soft humans kill such massive beasts?" "Teamwork, intelligence, and refusing to give up," Professor Miller explained. "They would chase a mammoth for days, stabbing it with spears until it finally collapsed. Sometimes the mammoth would kill several humans, but the others would keep attacking until they won. The screen changed to show humans in boats on stormy seas." "Then there's ocean exploration," Professor Miller said. "Humans looked at the endless, dangerous sea and decided they wanted to know what was on the other side. They built boats and sailed into storms, fog, and complete darkness." "Without knowing if there was land?" Yala asked from her water tank. "Without knowing anything. They sailed for weeks or months, running out of food and water, watching their friends die from disease and storms. But they kept going because they had to know what was out there." Professor Miller clicked to the next image, showing a human on top of a mountain covered in snow and ice. Mountain climbing is another example. Humans see a tall mountain and feel compelled to reach the top. Mount Everest, our tallest mountain, is so high that the air is too thin to breathe. The temperature can drop to -40 degrees. The wind can blow climbers off the mountain. "And humans climb it anyway?" asked Mira. "Hundreds of them every year. Many die trying. Their bodies are still up there, frozen in the ice. But humans keep climbing because the mountain exists." The door opened and a woman walked in. She was tall and muscular with short brown hair and skin darkened by the sun. She moved like a predator, smooth and confident. "Everyone, this is Katie Thompson," Professor Miller said. "She's an Olympic athlete visiting our station. Katie, would you mind showing our students what human physical achievement looks like?" Katie smiled, showing those threatening human teeth. Sure thing, Dan. What do you want to see? Maybe some basic human athletics? Katie nodded and moved to an open area of the room. She started doing things that made the alien students stare in amazement and horror. She ran in place, her legs moving so fast they were almost invisible. She dropped to the floor and pushed her body up and down with just her arms. She jumped, straight up, spinning in the air, before landing perfectly. Humans train their bodies like this for hours every day, Katie explained, not even breathing hard. I personally train 6 hours a day, every day for years at a time. 6 hours of torture? Bix asked weakly. We don't call it torture, Katie laughed. We call it preparation. I'm preparing for the Olympics, where humans from all over Earth compete to see who's the strongest, fastest, and most skilled. Professor Miller brought up images of Olympic events. Humans throwing heavy objects incredible distances. Humans running, faster than most vehicles on other worlds. Humans jumping over bars that were twice their height. The Olympics happen every 4 years, Professor Miller explained. Humans gather to celebrate physical achievement. They compete in events that would kill most other species. The screen showed human swimmers racing through water, their bodies cutting through it like ships. Then it showed humans on bicycles, racing at speeds that would be dangerous for aircraft on some worlds. Swimming? Yala asked in horror. They race in water? Some swim for miles in open ocean, Katie said. With sharks, jellyfish, and currents that can drag you underwater. It's amazing. And the bicycles? Asked Nex. Those racers reach speeds of over 40 miles per hour, Professor Miller said. On vehicles with no protection, no safety systems. Just human balance and courage. Katie demonstrated by balancing on one foot, then jumping to balance on one hand. The students couldn't believe humans could control their bodies so precisely. But sports are just games, Professor Miller continued. Let me show you what humans do when they're serious. The screen changed to show human warfare. Soldiers in armor, carrying weapons, marching into battle against other humans. Human conflict has shaped our entire species, Professor Miller said. For thousands of years, humans have fought each other over territory, resources, ideas, and sometimes just because they were bored. Humans fight each other? Core asked. The idea of the collective fighting itself was impossible to imagine. Constantly. We've developed warfare into an art form. Strategy, tactics, weapons, defense systems. Humans can turn anything into a weapon, and any place into a battlefield. The images showed human soldiers in different time periods. Ancient warriors with swords and shields. Medieval knights in metal armor. Modern soldiers with advanced weapons and vehicles. Humans don't just fight with weapons, Professor Miller explained. They fight with their minds. Military strategy, psychological warfare, espionage, sabotage. Human generals study warfare like scientists study nature. Katie nodded. I actually served in the military before becoming an athlete. 3 years in combat zones. You learn a lot about human endurance when people are trying to kill you. People tried to kill you? Mira asked, her voice shaking. Part of the job, Katie said calmly. Humans have been fighting wars for so long that we've gotten very good at it. We know how to work together, how to stay calm under pressure, how to keep going when everything goes wrong. Professor Miller changed the screen to show something even more incredible. Humans in spacesuits floating among the stars. And then there's space exploration, he said. Humans looked up at the infinite, deadly vacuum of space and decided we wanted to visit it. You left your planet? asked Zeph, his crystal body ringing with disbelief. First, we built machines and shot them into space to see if it was possible, Professor Miller explained. Many of those machines exploded or were lost forever. Then we started sending animals. Many of them died. And then? Yala asked, though she was afraid to hear the answer. Then we sent humans, Katie said proudly. Knowing that space had already killed our machines and animals, we strapped humans to rockets filled with explosives and shot them into the void. The screen showed early space missions, rockets exploding on launch pads, spacecraft spinning out of control, astronauts floating in space, protected from instant death by only thin suits. Many of those early space explorers died, Professor Miller said. Their rockets exploded, their spacecraft malfunctioned, their life support failed, but every time, humans died trying to reach space. More humans volunteered to try again. Why? Asked Nex, his voice crackling with confusion. Because space was there, Katie said simply. Because it was unknown. Because it was dangerous. Because everyone said it was impossible. Professor Miller nodded. Humans have a saying, because it's there. We climb mountains because they're there. We cross oceans because they're there. We explore space because it's there. That's not a reason, Bix protested, his leaves turning white with shock. It's the only reason humans need, Professor Miller said. If something exists and we haven't been there yet, we have to go. It doesn't matter how dangerous it is. Katie checked her watch. I need to go train for my next competition. It was nice meeting you all. Dan, don't forget to tell them about extreme sports. After Katie left, Professor Miller smiled at the terrified students. She mentioned extreme sports. Those are activities humans do purely for entertainment that involve serious risk of death. On their final day at the space station, the 6 alien students gathered in the main observation room. Through the large windows, Earth hung below them like a blue and white jewel. After everything they had learned, the planet looked different now. It was still beautiful, but they understood the terrible forces that shaped it and the incredible species that called it home. Jake Martinez walked in carrying his usual cup of coffee and a small bag. The students no longer jumped when humans appeared, though they still kept a respectful distance. Good morning, everyone, Jake said with his usual cheerful smile. I know you've learned a lot about Earth and humans during your stay. Today, I want to help you understand what it all means. He sat down in a chair facing them, moving with that relaxed confidence all humans seem to have. Let me ask you a question, Jake began. After everything you've seen and learned, what do you think makes humans dangerous? The students looked at each other uncertainly. Zeph's crystal body chimed softly as he spoke first. Your strength, he suggested. The way you can lift heavy things and run for hours? Jake shook his head. Humans aren't the strongest species on Earth. Bears are stronger. Elephants are much stronger. Your intelligence? Offered Mira through her breathing mask. The way you make tools and plan things? Dolphins and whales are very intelligent too, Jake said. Some birds can solve puzzles better than human children. Your weapons? Asked Core in his flat voice. Many animals have better natural weapons, Jake replied. Lions have claws and teeth. Snakes have poison. Porcupines have spikes. Yala bubbled, thoughtfully in her water tank. Your numbers? There are so many humans? Ants outnumber humans by millions to 1, Jake said. So do bacteria. Bix's leaves rustled with confusion. Then what makes humans so dangerous? Jake smiled and looked out at Earth. We don't give up. The students waited for him to explain. Every other species on Earth knows when to quit, Jake continued. When food gets scarce, they move or they die. When the weather gets bad, they hide or they die. When predators attack, they run or they die. When they get hurt, they rest or they die. He took a sip of his coffee and continued. Humans are different. When food gets scarce, we learn to eat new things. When the weather gets bad, we build shelters and make clothes. When predators attack, we make weapons and hunt them back. When we get hurt, we heal and come back stronger. Lisa Carter walked into the room, followed by Ryan Brooks, Dr. Walsh, Professor Miller, and Amy Johnson. All the humans the students had met during their stay were there. We wanted to be here for your farewell, Lisa explained, and to help Jake explain something important. Jake nodded and continued. You see, every other species on Earth adapted to fit their environment. Fish developed gills to breathe underwater. Birds developed wings to fly. Polar bears developed thick fur to stay warm. Humans did something different, Dr. Walsh added. Instead of changing our bodies to fit the environment, we changed the environment to fit us. Ryan stepped forward. When it got cold, we didn't grow fur. We killed animals and wore their fur. When we couldn't breathe underwater, we didn't develop gills. We built machines to bring air with us. When we couldn't fly, Amy continued, we didn't grow wings. We built aircraft. When we couldn't see in the dark, we didn't develop better eyes. We made lights. Professor Miller nodded. Other species become what their world needs them to be. Humans make their world become what they need it to be. Jake stood up and walked to the window, looking down at Earth. That's what makes humans truly dangerous. We don't accept limits. We don't accept that something is impossible. We don't accept that we can't go somewhere or do something or survive something. But why? Asked Nex, his frozen form crackling with curiosity. Why don't you just accept what you are? The humans looked at each other and smiled. Because accepting limits is boring, Jake said simply. Lisa laughed. Because there's always something new to discover, something new to try, something new to overcome. Because giving up means the adventure ends, Ryan added. Because every problem is just a puzzle waiting to be solved, Dr. Walsh said. Because if we can imagine it, we should be able to do it, Professor Miller concluded. Amy walked over to the window next to Jake. And because Earth taught us that anything worth having is worth fighting for, the students were quiet for a long moment, processing what they had heard. So you don't see Earth as a death world? Mira asked finally. Of course it's a death world, Jake said with a grin. It tries to kill us every single day. The weather, the animals, the plants, the geology, the atmosphere, everything on Earth is constantly trying to end human life. Then why do you love it? Asked Yala. Because it made us who we are, Amy said softly. Every challenge Earth threw at us made us stronger. Every disaster taught us something new. Every threat forced us to be more creative. Jake reached into his bag and pulled out 6 small containers. We have going-away gifts for each of you. He handed each student a container filled with dark brown dirt. Soil from Earth, Jake explained, from 6 different places around the planet. Desert sand, mountain soil, ocean sand, forest dirt, prairie earth, and Arctic ground. The students stared at their containers with wonder and fear. Why give us this? Asked Zeph. Because Earth isn't just our world, Lisa said. It's our teacher. Every grain of that soil represents millions of years of life refusing to give up, growing, adapting, and thriving despite impossible odds. Dr. Walsh stepped forward. And because we want you to remember something important. Earth didn't make humans dangerous because it was cruel. It made us strong because it loved us enough to challenge us. Every species in the galaxy that has worked with humans has become stronger, Professor Miller added. Not more dangerous, more alive, more curious, more willing to try new things. Ryan nodded. That's what humans really bring to the galaxy, not weapons or threats, but the idea that nothing is impossible if you're willing to work for it. Jake looked around at all the students. When you go back to your home worlds, you'll carry a piece of Earth with you. Not just the soil, but the idea that you can be more than what you are now. Amy smiled. And maybe, just maybe, you'll look at your own challenges differently. Instead of problems to avoid, maybe you'll see them as adventures to embrace. The students looked down at their containers of Earth soil, then back at the humans who had taught them so much. Will we ever see you again? Asked Bix, his leaves a healthier green than they had been in days. The galaxy is a big place, Jake said, but humans have a habit of turning up in unexpected places. We're explorers, remember? We go where others haven't been. Lisa checked her data pad. Your transport ship will be here in 1 hour. We should probably get you packed and ready. As the students prepared to leave, each of them felt changed by their experience. They had come to study the ultimate death world, but they had learned something much more important. They had learned what it meant to never give up. Zeph's crystal body rang with new harmonics as he realized that breaking could make him stronger. Mira breathed more confidently, understanding that obstacles were just challenges to overcome. Kor felt individual thoughts forming in his mind, separate from the collective for the first time. Yala swam with more purpose, ready to explore the deeper waters of her home world. Bix's leaves reached toward the light with new energy, eager to grow beyond what he thought possible. Nex's frozen form held new warmth, the heat of determination and curiosity. As their transport ship arrived, the humans gathered to see them. Off. Remember, Jake called out as they boarded, you're not the same beings who arrived here scared and worried. You've got a little bit of Earth in you now, a little bit of human stubbornness. And remember, Amy added, every challenge you face is just Earth's way of asking if you're ready to grow. The transport ship pulled away from the station, carrying the 6 students back to their home worlds. But they were no longer just students. They were explorers, carrying with them the most dangerous idea in the galaxy, the idea that anything was possible. As Earth grew smaller behind them, the students looked at their containers of soil and understood something the rest of the galaxy was only beginning to learn. Humans weren't dangerous because they came from a death world. Humans were dangerous because they had turned a death world into a home. And now, armed with that knowledge and a handful of Earth dirt, 6 young aliens were about to bring a little bit of that dangerous hope back to their own worlds. The galaxy would never be quite the same. In the months that followed, strange reports began to filter through galactic communication networks. Altarian crystals were experimenting with controlled braking to grow stronger. Nexarian gas beings were exploring dangerous pressure zones they had never dared enter before. Collective drones were developing individual thoughts and personal goals. Thalassians were diving deeper than ever before, seeking what lay in the dark waters of their world's abyssal depths. Verdanians were growing in hostile environments, pushing their limits to see how much they could endure. And Cryogenians were warming themselves, discovering that a little heat could create new forms of beauty in their frozen world. 6 months after leaving Earth's orbital station, the alien students were scattered across the galaxy, each back on their home worlds. But they were no longer the same beings who had first arrived at Pioneer's Rest in fear and confusion. Each carried with them not just a container of earth soil, but something far more dangerous. The human idea that impossible was just another word for not yet attempted. On the crystal world of Altair Prime, Zeph stood before the Council of Resonance, the governing body of his people. His crystalline form had changed during his time away. Where once his structure had been perfect and uniform, now it showed deliberate imperfections, stress lines, and reformed fractures that made him stronger and more beautiful than before. "Honored Council," Zeph said, his voice creating music that had never been heard on Altair Prime before. "I request permission to establish an Earth Studies program." The council members vibrated with confusion. Their world had always prized perfection. Crystals that cracked were considered flawed and were usually dissolved back into the growth pools to start over. "Young Zeph," said the eldest council member, her ancient crystal form singing with authority, "your structure shows damage. You should report for reformation immediately." "Respectfully, Elder, I choose not to," Zeph replied. "These cracks make me stronger. I learned this from humans. They break and heal stronger than before. I have done the same." To demonstrate, Zeph struck his own arm against a resonance stone. The impact would have shattered any normal Altarian. Instead, Zeph's reformed crystal structure absorbed the blow and rang like a beautiful bell. The council fell silent. No Altarian had ever deliberately damaged themselves and survived, much less become stronger. "Tell us about these humans," the elder said quietly. Meanwhile, in the gas clouds of Nexar, Mira floated through pressure zones that no Nexarian had ever dared to explore. Her breathing suit had been modified with human-inspired technology, not to make exploration safer, but to make it possible at all. Her family drifted nearby, their gas forms rippling with worry as she dove deeper into the dangerous pressure layers of their world's atmosphere. "Mira, please return to safe depths," her parent called through the gas medium. "No Nexarian has ever survived the deep pressures." "No Nexarian has ever tried," Mira replied, her voice carrying new confidence. "Humans taught me that never done before doesn't mean impossible. It just means we get to be the first." She activated her pressure suit's new systems and dove deeper into the crushing depths where no Nexarian had gone before. Hours later, she returned with samples of gas formations that had only existed in theory. Her successful exploration would revolutionize Nexarian science and open up entirely new regions of their world for exploration. On the collective world, something unprecedented was happening. Kor stood in his individual dwelling, the first private space any collective member had ever requested. The hive mind buzzed with confusion and concern as one of their drones developed independent thoughts. "Core unit, your individual thinking. Patterns are disrupting the collective harmony," the central mind communicated. "Report for reintegration immediately." "I respectfully decline," Core responded, his voice carrying emotion that no collective member had ever expressed before. "I have learned from humans that individual thoughts can strengthen the group, not weaken it. This is impossible. The collective is perfect unity." "The collective is limited unity," Core corrected. "Humans showed me that diversity of thought creates strength. I wish to contribute my individual perspective to make the collective stronger." For the first time in the history of their species, the collective had to consider the possibility that unity and individuality could coexist. In the shallow seas of Thalassos, Yala swam deeper than any of her people had ever gone. The Thalassians lived in the safe, sunlit waters near their world's surface, where gentle currents and peaceful fish made life easy and predictable. But Yala now wore equipment designed using human principles, not to make the deep ocean safe, but to make it survivable long enough to explore. She descended into the dark depths where her people believed only death and monsters lived. "Yala, return to shallow water immediately," her pod leader called through the water. "The deep dark has taken every Thalassian who has entered it." "Because they went unprepared," Yala called back. "Humans taught me that preparation and determination can overcome any obstacle." She continued her descent into waters no Thalassian had ever seen and survived. In the crushing depths, she discovered entire ecosystems that had been unknown to her people. Bioluminescent creatures that created living light shows, thermal vents that supported complex communities of life. And most importantly, she proved that the deep dark wasn't a place of death. It was a place of wonders that required courage to discover. On the garden world of Verdania, Bix had scandalized his entire community by deliberately growing in the harsh zones, areas of their planet where conditions were difficult and most plants chose not to take root. "Young Bix," said his growth tender, "why do you insist on growing in soil that fights you? There are so many perfect growing spots with ideal conditions." Bix's leaves rustled with new strength. His time in harsh conditions had made him more resilient than any Verdanian in living memory. "Because perfect conditions make weak plants," he explained. "Humans taught me that struggle creates strength. I choose to be strong." He had established the first Verdanian colony in their world's desert regions, proving that his people could thrive in environments they had always avoided. His success inspired other young Verdanians to seek out their own challenges. In the frozen methane storms of Cryos, Nex had done something that shocked his entire species. He had built a warming chamber. The Cryogenians had always believed that any heat would destroy their frozen forms, but Nex had learned from humans that controlled exposure to challenging conditions could lead to adaptation. "Nex, you risk dissolution," warned his ice parent. "Heat is the enemy of our kind." "Uncontrolled heat is dangerous," Nex replied, his form showing new crystalline patterns that had never existed before. "Controlled heat creates new possibilities." Inside his warming chamber, Nex had discovered that his people could survive in higher temperatures than they had ever imagined. More importantly, the controlled heat had allowed him to grow new crystal formations that were incredibly beautiful. He was becoming something new, a cryogenian who could exist in a wider range of temperatures, opening up possibilities for his people to explore warmer regions of their world and even other planets. Back on Earth, Jake Martinez received reports from across the galaxy about the changes happening on 6 different worlds. He sat in his office on the orbital station, drinking his morning coffee and reading the updates with growing amazement. Lisa Carter walked in, carrying her own coffee and a stack of datapads. "Have you seen the latest reports from the exchange students' homeworlds?" she asked. Jake nodded, smiling. "Zeph has convinced the Altarian Council to start a controlled fracture program to make their people stronger. Mira has opened up 3 new atmospheric layers for Nexarian exploration. Core has started an individual thought movement in the collective." "And that's just the beginning," Lisa added, sitting down. "Yala has mapped the entire deep ocean system of Thalassos. Bix has established desert colonies that are thriving in conditions his people thought were impossible. Nex has invented controlled heating that's revolutionizing cryogenian technology." Jake took another sip of his coffee. It's bigger than we expected, isn't it? Much bigger. We're getting requests from dozens of other species who want to send students to Earth. Word is spreading that contact with humans doesn't just provide education, it provides transformation. Dr. Walsh walked into the office carrying medical reports. "You two need to see this," he said, setting down the data. "Pads. I've been analyzing the biological changes in our 6 students since they returned home." "Changes?" Jake asked. "Each of them is showing continued adaptation," Dr. Walsh explained. "Zeph's crystal structure is still evolving, becoming stronger and more complex. Mira's gas form is developing new pressure resistance. Yala's aquatic systems are adapting for deeper diving." Lisa leaned forward. "Are you saying that their time on Earth actually changed their biology? Not just their biology, their entire species potential," Dr. Walsh said. "Each of them is pushing their people's evolutionary boundaries. They're becoming what their species could be, not just what they've always been." Jake stood up and walked to the window, looking down at Earth. "So it's not just that Earth makes humans strong. Earth makes everything stronger if it's willing to accept the challenge." "That's the most dangerous thing about humans," a new voice said. They turned to see Ryan Brooks entering the office. "We don't just survive impossible conditions. We make impossible conditions survivable for everyone else." Amy Johnson followed Ryan into the office. "I just got back from a consultation with the Galactic Council," she said. "They're officially terrified." "Of what?" Lisa asked. "Of this," Amy said, gesturing to the reports scattered across Jake's desk. 6 species have been fundamentally changed by contact with human ideas. The Council is worried about what happens when those ideas spread to other worlds.